Good to go.
It is Monday, January 22nd, 5:35 p.m. Call to order the meeting of the Tilton Northfield Fire and EMS Fire Station Building Committee meeting. The chief distributed minutes from the 12/11/23 meeting. Chance to read them. Oh, I forgot that. Those present: Kevin Waldron, Tim Sadler, Chief Setar, Nate Langione, Dennis Manning, Paul Blaisdell. Motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Need a second.
You need a second?
Oh.
I'll second.
Second.
That's what I meant to say. I didn't say. Shut that off, folks. Yes, every time.
I guess there's no discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are accepted.
Abstain, as I was not at that meeting.
I abstain because I wasn't at that meeting either.
Okay, so on tonight's agenda is one thing and one thing only, and that is providing guidance to the chief and UNH to support the town-wide survey and Tilton, the district-wide survey, both Tilton and Northfield.
And I just wanted to offer clarification based on the email that you sent out. The commissioners are in favor of the survey, although they haven't authorized the survey because we're in the midst of a new fiscal year and there was discussion about where the money would come to pay for the survey.
Okay.
And that was not resolved by the end of the meeting. But we did want the committee to continue to move forward with coming up with a list of information they would like the survey to ascertain.
Okay.
Does anybody have any idea at all how many questions this survey may be?
They're probably going to try to keep it somewhat short. Most of your surveys are fairly short, or you'll lose your people. But I have no idea. That would be a question for them.
I think it could be up to, what is it? Like this side and this side, so up to 4 pages long is what he was showing us. But
Some of it's informational and stuff like. So I guess I wouldn't focus on like the number of questions. I think it's better for us to send them way more and then have them go, okay, these 6 are similar enough, or trying to get this piece of information, we can reword these questions as one question kind of deal.
that's what you're hiring them to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I'm gonna let them, they're the experts, I'm gonna let them,
I think we should give them all the questions we come up with and let them figure it out.
You're asking that because you're worried that people will be turned off if it's too many questions? Or what would you?
Well, partly,
Person.
because if you send me something with 50 questions, you have a lot less chance that I'm gonna play that game than if you send it on with 15.
Okay.
That's fair.
You probably won't see 50 in there, that's,
I mean, I can think of 100 questions.
right, but having, I mean,
I
actually.
think that's why
taken-
we're hiring them,
Yeah.
is because they have the expertise to know.
To be honest, I've taken, they send me surveys all the time, UNH.
Yeah.
I don't take them all, but I've taken a lot of them. And some of them have been 3 questions, and some of them have been like, Jesus Christ, when's this gonna end? You know,
Yeah.
but those are online.
I used to
So-
get those, and then my email address changed, and I haven't gotten any since.
But, so, I mean, and while I signed up, they said you wanted to receive them, so I said yes, and then it's just a matter of picking and choosing what I,
Which ones you reply back?
yeah, and it really never tells me what it is, it's just like, I'll open it up, and if I think it's garbage that I don't wanna do, then I just don't do it, but,
My other thought is, are we better off to provide them questions or tell them what we're looking to find out and let them phrase the questions to take our bias out of it?
I think it's both. You
Yeah.
can provide them with both, and they'll
right.
formulate it and so that they're a non-biased question.
They'll probably figure out or ascertain what we're trying to figure out. When they look at all, if we submit everything that we have and they look at it all, they'll be like, if they can't figure out what we're trying to get to, then they probably should be out of the survey business.
Yeah, so I think based on what I've read so far, like, we have information in the form of questions, we have, things we want to know as far as outcomes, and then we also have, like, topic or subject areas. And I think it's totally valid to provide that information in, different formats. Maybe it makes sense for us to go through each of the prepared lists, have someone, take notes. Maybe we just, someone would read off all the questions, then we start at the top, discuss the question, do we like it as worded, do we want to make some changes, do we not think we should include it at all, and then we just go through, and by the end we'll have a somewhat pared down list. And
So, they will, if we give them everything we have, they'll make the questions and how many there are, and they'll put them in the order that they think they should be. Then we'll get that to review, and we'll see if it's too much, too little, or if we don't think they're asking the right questions. We may go back and forth on this, a few times before we come down to the final survey of what we think is an appropriate survey to pass out. I think on the first go round, we should hand them everything.
Yeah. 'Cause like some of them, I can tell you right now, looking at Lisa's, I mean, we've asked kind of some of the same information, just in a different formats. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was
it's like,
talking
so
about.
we're gonna see this. I haven't read everybody's yet, but going through them,
And I just think if we did it as a group, question by question, it would just get through everything faster. We can eliminate duplicates. I guess my biggest concern is, like, we don't want to send them on a snipe hunt, because we just send everything and there's a couple questions that the group as a whole don't think is relevant. But
I think we should stop questioning their ability to do a survey, and we should start talking about whether what we've got on paper includes everything we're thinking of.
I agree. That's why we're hiring them. We're not discussing sending out the survey ourselves.
Can I just clarify whose questions these are? Because I've got.
So the TNFD survey is from me, and that's a 3-pager.
Okay.
And then, whose questions for fire and EMS survey?
It's Dennis, I think.
this one, yeah, that's me. You
And then the questions for fire and EMS survey.
That's mine.
Oh, that's yours?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And then the email one is,
Well, it's Lucy's. So this one's done, okay. I apologize, I have mine all listed down, but I didn't print them out. Which one?
And I did less
That
about
was 17.
asking questions, and I kind of focused more on the answers that were looking at.
That's what I did.
this is my pile, these are extras or yours, there's a lot of.
Okay, this
Yeah,
is right here.
Do we wanna start with the chief's survey, I guess? Or the chief's questions, review those please?
I don't want to pare them down, to be honest with you. I don't.
So do we wanna like discuss them then? Cause if, otherwise, what do we?
I think I just wanna read through them and see if there's stuff I have that isn't here. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I wanna read and see this stuff that I didn't think of even.
Right.
If that isn't true.
And then after we do that, maybe I'll share with you what I have, because I think a lot of it's covered here.
The station's over 150 years old.
Sure
I
is.
didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
And that was only a couple of years ago, right? 156?
Yep, the number 8. It's been pursuing this new fire station since '86.
I thought the last one was built in
That's,
82.
that's when Park Street was built,
Yeah, that's what Mike Robbins had told me.
and there was no, I mean,
They built that, he told me they built that as a stopgap measure with additional footings or something to add on to it. And so he said he's been involved in looking to build a new fire station, because a new complete fire station housing firefighters since 1986 is what he told me. If that's not true, that's fine too, but that's what he told me. I'm inclined to accept what he says. I wasn't here then.
I feel like, because when did the, like, I feel like the recent initiative started in like 2010? Or like, when was the initial facilities committee report?
Oh, well, that was,
which one?
which one? Yeah. So,
Yeah, there was one built one out.
What's online?
what's online actually started out in 2014 or 2015.
That's the current.
That's the current, since I've been chief.
There was a proposal.
There's been several proposals before that, and the one, I think that was probably, isn't there one that only over on by the J. Jill that failed by 1 or 2 votes?
Oh, that was the combined
Police
fire, right? Or
Yeah,
that was
well,
the
there
two
was-
buildings that were going to be next to each other.
I don't know.
That was separate from a fire station over there.
Yeah. Then there was the one on Business Park Drive, that the town of Tilton was pursuing.
Yeah.
There was one by the J. Jill, then Chief Carrier, when Steve Carrier was here, he had plans or a proposal for an addition to Park Street. And I don't know what else. I know those are the ones off the top of my head that I know about, and then the ones that I've been involved with. So
I just think maybe it's worth saying like 2010, just as far as like recent history, but it does make sense if that was purely a stopgap measure, they would immediately start trying to figure out the next one.
I'd have to ask Mike, what was the next step from 1986 when they completed that? When did they actually bring something before the voters or have a committee? I could ask him that question. If you want to clarify that, you know.
Or
it's a
maybe,
little more.
you know, the last
we
station
get
or
rid of
building was built in
24/7?
80 what?
2003?
3, 5, somewhere around there.
No, it wasn't 3, it was not 3.
It was
4 or 5, I'm thinking.
was
We had day
was
coverage.
Petrin, the chief,
Yeah.
when we went 24. He was hired in 2000.
Well, was that because Belmont took over that station in 2005 and then
That was-
that
that's-
closed later?
that's a
So I wasn't
unrelated.
sure if that was tied to the
Separate
going
issue.
full-time.
Separate issue.
We had day coverage.
Going full-time was a result of just, the call volume was increasing and the call response, especially during the day, was hard.
The Winter Swamp Firehouse doesn't even exist anymore. It belongs
Yeah,
to
it's Winnie Marine now.
Yeah, boat storage.
Ah,
Yeah.
person by there.
I guess I have a couple, I have a real problem with a couple of these questions on Nathan's page 3.
So do I, the last two specifically.
The last two are, do you support dissolving the fire district? And if the next fire station proposal does not pass, would you be more likely to support dissolving the fire district? I'm not sure those are appropriate questions for this exercise.
I totally agree.
Because
What are they?
I know,
Page 3.
I think it was the last proposal, there was also a vote on whether or not to dissolve the district, and so my thinking was just getting the temperature for both towns as to, do you support a fire district, and the outcome of this proposal, you know, would that change that to any degree?
I think my perception of that is different. Yes, there was a big to-do about whatever, but a bunch of
That was
voters
tied to a facilities.
petition for a warrant article, so that it was brought up, and then we had a huge outpouring of people coming to a meeting and got soundly defeated.
Yeah, that was the biggest, the largest attended district meeting I think I've seen in,
Ever.
yeah.
There's never one
And
more.
It was like standing room only at the
Over
cafeteria.
400 people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but there has never been a proposal to dissolve related to a proposal to build.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought they occurred at the same
No.
meeting, and so that's why I
No, in
thought
fact,
they
they
were
were
tied
years
together.
apart.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was before we formed the 2015 Facilities Committee.
Yes. So I guess,
What was?
when was that?
That big vote where somebody put that warrant up there to dissolve the district.
You know, I mean, if you get,
That
you
was
only need
between
like
7
30
and 10.
people.
Because I remember going to that, but I mean, we started the 215, that's when I was commissioner.
Yep.
And,
It
and
was
I
prior
know
to that.
it was long before that, yeah.
It was.
I am fine with striking both those questions. I just,
Yeah, I don't think that's related to what we're.
It has nothing to do with building. It has to do with
other politics.
a total different question.
It could affect somebody putting another warrant before the vote, but I mean, I would tend to agree with Tim on that one, only because, I mean, we're trying to ascertain what people want for a station, what and where, for the most part. And
And then I guess on the second page, these questions about dollar amounts. I don't know how they would word those so that, I don't know, obviously I want it to be
Yeah.
cheap
I mean,
as possible.
yeah. You wanna pay $10 for this hamburger, or do you wanna pay $4 for this hamburger? It's like, you know, it's gotta be a
Right,
resounding
but
$4.
again, it's the idea of like
Right.
gauging, because like, you know,
But
there's
I
gonna
have
be
no
people-
idea how much a building costs. I have no idea how much it should cost.
Well, that's why I also included
Depends on
the
what the
cost
building is.
information from the previous proposals, because that gives people, go, okay, X amount of years ago, it was this much, and then
I
that
see
much,
where you
like-
were going, but
Right.
Because I was just thinking, there are going to be people who will never support it, even if it were like free, or if it only cost them $1 in
So
taxes.
what happens if
Yeah,
the
no.
majority say, I fully
This
support a
total
station
project,
between $3 and $5 million? What if you get 100% of the respondents say, I'll support that? And then you find out it costs $6 million.
Well, you know that 100% would support the 5 million, and hopefully more than 50% of that would support a $1 million increase. But that was the idea of, that was my thought on getting ranges. And maybe that could be, you know, a question
But
of,
that stirs up a whole other hornet's nest, which is, what are we looking to do? Are we looking to build a fire station that will support the fire district? Or are we looking to build a building that meets a certain financial criteria? Because the two may not equate.
Did you get it?
I did, yes, first try. I see what you're saying, I think we need to get the previous cost in front of people, because that will give them perspective as to whatever the actual cost ends
Well,
up being.
that leads to another part of this, is to use this as an educational, how do you put into the questionnaire survey to relate to the district that we do, 2,200 calls a year, and that relates to 6 a day. So in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, if I'm now knowing that we do 6 calls a day, and I was thinking we could just do this with call firefighters, the realization that, well, I guess you can't.
I think
Or
there
the
should
fact
be-
that it's, 3/4 of the calls are medical. I think the chief had that in one of his. How do you get
There
that?
should be a short narrative at the beginning
Exactly.
of the questionnaire. Number one, why are you receiving this? Number two, what do we expect to gain from it? And then informational data such as that, I think, would be.
So I think the rep from UNH did mention that, like, different sections, like the back was going to be certain information, the front was going to be certain information, the interior was going to be like the questionnaire and info stuff that we wanted. And so, like, of the panels, we could have one panel or 2 panels dedicated just to like providing information and background to the survey takers.
Well, I'm fully on board with informational sessions.
What were your 3 sections? You said, why are you receiving this?
Why are you receiving this? What are we looking to get from it? What information are we looking to glean in a short narrative?
Like a lot of the chief's questions here, that would be what I would see like in the brief, in the first narrative.
Yeah.
Because
But
it's
those-
just like,
Yeah, I'm sorry,
no, I was just saying, when you put information on, like you said, why are we receiving this?
right.
The Center Street Station, which is our main headquarters, was built in 1867.
But
We
I think all of
currently run
these,
this many calls a day, blah, 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 ball blah.
Because that hopefully will
data.
answer all those questions. Oh, we
Yeah,
have a
and then
full-time
you
fire
can-
department?
Right.
one paragraph of narrative will,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then-
I was thinking some of those almost translate into like just bullet points versus questions. Like, do we need to know if they knew, or do we just need to tell them that information?
But that would help, that would help shorten the amount of
Questions.
questions, because once you read that, so instead of, like, I ask questions, because I'm sitting there in my house going, like, do you know what your district is? There's a lot of people out there that probably have no idea, like you said, you have 2 stations? Do you know we're even a district? Do you know it's not part of your town government? It's actually a separate entity, yada, yada, yada. But if that's all explained, boop, right up front, then we can get rid of half of the dang questions we
Yeah,
just
you're
asked.
right.
And we can, like Lisa asked some good questions too. And, but the amount of detail in some of her questions might even be alleviated once you present that, just straightforward information. Right now, this is what the district has. We have property at, Park Street. We have property availed to us by the town of Tilton at Salmon Road that will, boom, just straight up information. And you're worried about bias and stuff, none of that's bias. It's just straight up factual information. And then we can just answer the question, knowing that. And then we go through and hopefully they'll ask some questions, take some of this stuff. But the only thing that I would really say, just to add on to that, like I said, I was doing a lot of the research and I found some stuff. Like I came across this Concord. They hired this company, Emergency Services Consulting International. Not saying we should hire them or anything like that,
You heard them?
but or somebody like that. You know what? Concord hired them to look at what they've got. This was not a design build or anything like that. This was just, hey, what do we do as a fire department? What's our structural line? It's actually quite an interesting read.
Were you able to find out the cost? How old is that?
January 2022, so it's
Oh,
it's
so it's not
recent.
that
So
old.
Concord was, and I didn't print out all the pages,
Yeah.
but they had all like the population densities, all the color. They got a bunch of, they go with the color graphs of the outline of Concord, and it's very detailed.
Did it outline the cost of that from that company?
No, this is just a report. They didn't,
Oh,
put
okay.
they didn't put the cost in it.
I got it.
And you know what? But my point is with that's so now they can. I'm looking at us. I'm like, well, with that, I almost feel like we're putting the cart before the horse, trying to design and build a damn station before we have all of our. I'm that guy. I need data. Maybe the rest of the townspeople really don't need the data. I'm a guy that needs data. See, if you tell me everybody goes here for breakfast, why the hell are we gonna? Eat
Build a breakfast joint down there.
And I think you're right. Anecdotally, we think we know all that stuff. We
Right.
know we need a new station. We know the current one, all the deficiencies, and based on how we run, we know we need these spaces for space needs, and we can look at the data for call volume, and we know the station should be here, but there's no property there to build it. So does that help though educate the district voters by having that document that you could post and share?
Oh, this Concord study?
Well, no,
if we had
one
it.
like we had
No,
our
I think it took.
because
If we have
in my mind they'd probably confirm half the stuff we already know and then make it plain.
And we're not
spoken.
Concord. I'm thinking there's probably, but I did a lot of stuff, and I was looking at California stuff. I've got an abstract, so I pulled this. Not that I was looking at, but I just pulled the abstract down simply for the information that they have, and they say, you know what? What I did is I Googled factors in planning a fire station location, and I got a gazillion things, and I just started reading through, and I was like, well, this is freaking interesting. And it seems like 4 minutes is like the standard that you don't want to exceed. All right, and that's actually outlined. I won't read the abstract of this, but when you read their like the executive summary, if you guys will just humor me for a second, it goes into just this one paragraph. Using organizational, operational, staffing, and geographic information systems (GIS) models, an evaluation of the existing fire and rescue operations and recommendations for improvement in current services delivered to the community. The evaluation and analysis of the data and other information is based on National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, we've heard that, NFPA standards. The Center for Public Safety Excellence / Commission on Fire Accreditation International. Standards cover 6th edition safety and health requirements, health and safety requirements, federal and state mandates relative to emergency services, and generally accepted practices within the emergency services community where applicable. And then they go into each of they describe really briefly the sections. Each section in the following report provides the reader with general information about the element as well as observation and analyses of the significant issues or conditions. Observations are supported by data provided by Concord Fire Department and collected as part of a review and interview process. Finally, specific recommendations are included to address identified issues or to take advantage of opportunities that might exist. And then they went in, I'm not going to read all these things, but if you want to just take these next 2 pages, I printed those if anyone wanted to look in. But they give option A, which is no changes, and then an option B under this decision point, and then they give a description, percentage of 2020 incidents within a 4-minute travel time. So they say current, like Dade Concord right now in this area, they have 69.8% of their calls that are within a 4-minute. And obviously the net improvement with no changes is
Zero.
no improvement, right? Zero, no change. And then they give the option B, which bumps them up almost, the net change is 8.9%. So they just, it's how they go through, and it was interesting looking down through all the maps and how they detailed a lot of stuff. Like I said, I'm not recommending that, or making a recommendation that we do that, but I find it interesting enough to address that. I think that would have a positive affect on how people think. At least it does me. I'm a data guy, that's all.
So do we want to put a question on the survey if we want to do a fire station location study, or do we want to send something to the commissioners that we recommend they look into doing this? I'm just trying to,
I'm not saying that we
takeaway.
put any of this into a survey other than the information that we can glean from something. I'm not saying that we should dump tens of thousands of dollars into this study when I think for our community, look, we're hamstringed by available property. I mean, the city of Concord has a lot more. I don't know if they have eminent domain within a city or.
I mean, we
how
have
they-
eminent domain. Not that I'm saying it should be used.
Yeah.
I'm just stating a fact.
But I think they have more purchasing power than Concord.
Isn't it 90% of the calls?
The standard is response time your response time should be that you should be at every scene within 4 minutes for 90% of your call volume. That's the standard.
Right.
So we'd need
We're not.
3-man stations to make that.
Yeah.
Because of the geographic distance.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why I wouldn't recommend this. I mean, because we already know before we do a study, it's logistically not feasible for our communities. So I mean, this study could come back and say, well, for you guys to actually hit that 90%, you're going to go bankrupt, and nobody's going to say, sure, we'll do that.
I think also that involving the community, having studies by outside agencies is fine if you're going to tailor the results of that study to the demographics of your community. In other words, that, say we did something like that and they come back and say, you need 3 stations, $10 million each. Well,
right.
we can't afford that. It's not feasible. So I think when all is said and done, we have the data as far as the call volume and the response time. We know what, I can't believe I even started to say this. We don't know. We have a general idea of the tolerance level of taking a bond out. It's not going to be in the $10 or $11 million range. We'll probably even struggle in the $7 to $8 million range. But we can chisel out a lot of the information that needs to be put before the public without doing a formal study like that.
Right.
So I think what we need to do is lean on the data that the chief provides us and then expand on that as far as interfacing with the community and getting them more involved. But the basis of any survey is going to be the numbers, the data. And that's going to be included in that.
Our records management system, I can generally pull out almost any type of data that you're looking for. And I did one today just for my own curiosity. And it's incident locations over the last 5 years per district. And I took out the highway, but I kept mutual aid. Just, I don't know. It's just I was just playing around.
Yeah.
And you can see over the last 5 years, the calls for the eastern side of the village, like East Tilton and East Northfield, have been going up and up and up, and they're the most amount of calls as well. You see where the village district started at the most, but now it's declining. Also, the west side, like the other side by the high school and, Oak Hill Road, all of that, the west side, that's increasing. But mutual aid calls, flat.
But
Is
so-
that mutual aid goes both ways? Was that just
Going out, responding,
Going.
going away,
providing mutual?
providing.
But it makes perfect sense if you, I mean, even from a layman's point of view, that makes perfect sense. I mean, look at what's happening in East Tilton, and look at what's happening over in Northfield, over that area. I mean, like Shaw Road and all those. I mean, Shaw Road was a dirt road that, you know, well, I won't say it on tape, but I mean, you know, it was, when you were a teenager, it was an opportune place to not get caught doing stuff, you know? But I mean, now it's, I think half of it, most of those roads out there are paved now. I mean,
There's a good section
the
of Shaw that's
density of
unpaved.
homes and stuff is
There's still one
increasing.
section that's not paved.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's grown exponentially out there as far as houses and stuff. So I mean, it
I don't
doesn't
think
surprise me at all.
I don't think there's any land in the village district in Tilton that's developable outside of like taking down an existing building.
The only interest in Tilton on Route 3 seems to be car dealerships and storage right now. So I mean,
I think the
They
Paul,
don't increase
no,
service costs.
no.
Paul made the broad overview, but I think, you know, all the issues that we talk around are the same. How much are the voters willing to vote for? You know, what's that dollar amount that they're gonna say, you know, we're out? And I think that was the case with both the Tilton School property and the Manville Road property, was the dollar amount was too high. And then, right, where's the station gonna go? Well, if you only have one station's over there, you've got an issue. You only have one station's over here, you have an issue. Then you go back to having two stations, and now it's the cost.
Right.
And then I think we have a whole issue with educating the users. Do they know what, you know, the fire department even does? Do they know that, you know, I had one of the firefighters say to me, they were at a house and they'd go, wow, you got here quick. And it's like, yeah, well, we're just on the street. And didn't even realize that we had a manned fire department at night. You know?
I'd like to add one item to your laundry list of kind of the answers that we're looking for. And one of the things that I want to not necessarily focus on, but tie back into is the recommendations of previous committees. Because if we don't look into those, if we don't consider those recommendations, then what we're doing is we're saying those committees are invalid. Now, maybe they are because of time, you know, the distance of time and the change of the data. But in addition to what Tim just brought up, what I would like to do is again, I'm focusing on what answers are we looking for. Do we place any consideration on previous committees' recommendations? Because at least in 2019, I mean, the direction we're moving right now is polar opposite to what that committee recommended.
I mean,
Does that get listed in the narrative?
pre-COVID and post-COVID, just as far as
I don't buy it.
cost,
I don't, okay, I'm sorry.
like when we're talking about supply chain issues and cost of labor, cost of goods, cost of raw materials, not to mention the fact that if you look at what's going on globally at the moment, we're seeing major impacts to the supply chain and shipping costs. So like, I don't foresee things getting closer to like the fiscal situation that we were in like 16, 17, 18,
So does that
19.
help us? Do you think people are more aware that things cost more? Does that help us, or does that hurt us when people going, oh my God, it was going to be 5 million, then it's going to be.
I don't think
Well,
it-
that's
I
why I
don't think it does
included
either. I
the
think
past
I think more people
proposals
are aware
and the
that's
square
gonna
footage
cost.
costs.
But that doesn't mean they're gonna like it.
Well, I'll tell you, when I
Oh,
see
accept it.
$375 a square foot for construction costs on a building where a lot of it is open space, it is eye-opening, because when I built my house, it was $69 a square foot for a residential, so.
Look now, and they're $400.
Well, and I don't know how much we have to bring it to the forefront, because I mean, just I mean, even Gen Z, our youngest, well, not our youngest generation. The youngest generation are just children right now. But I mean, Gen Z, they're that's like my daughter's generation. That's your son's, Oliver's generation. You know, where they're seeing it, they're feeling it. That's why they're all moving back home because they're like, I can't afford to live. So they know they're aware stuff costs a lot
So
more.
do you include in, I'm sort of feeling like we need to include that, and Nate's got it added in here with his questions. But do we need to, I don't know if it goes in the narrative or part of explaining what we're looking for or why we're looking for it, is because in 2017 we had this proposal at this amount and it failed. And it failed because of, and maybe, you know, I'm thinking it failed because of cost, and for some people location. And then we had, 2 years later, we had another proposal that was for this much dollars, and it included a new station and a rehab of the old station, and that one failed, and why it failed. And then 19, we had a study that came out that said, hey, let's put together a proposal for building a single station down at Park Street. And then, I don't know if you, now it's going to be, how do you caveat that? Some changes have come around in the thought process, and why? What do you put? You got to be very careful there.
I think in 2019, that was really the only land available to us at the time. I don't believe the Sanborn Road property.
Sanborn Road was not.
It wasn't available, and in the meantime, it became available. And then we had the 2021 committee, and they said, well, the commissioners decide, well, we've got to look at it and consider it. Are they going to ask us that question? Did you consider Sanborn Road? And they'd shoot it down just because any proposal we put forward.
So do we
Depending on
provide,
how you
where
interpret the
do you
data,
provide
Yeah.
too much
it's cheaper
information?
than Park Street.
I know,
I
but I
I think the narrative needs to be a paragraph, 2 at the
Right.
absolute most.
So
At the absolute.
we can have like a narrative, like maybe history section, and then maybe like a small like
Well, the
financial
objective-
blurb or something.
The objective and the narrative can kind of be intertwined. You know, there is a building facilities committee, and this is the reason, okay? And then, you know, that, because that's the objective, right?
I just
and-
think financial information doesn't present as cleanly in like narrative paragraph form versus like being.
Do you know what I think
bullet-pointed.
translates really well? Is information like what the chief just showed. Because
A lot of
that's
people here are
showing
data
trend.
people. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
We're data people.
Right.
And
And-
I know I am.
And maybe the narrative should not be numbers. It should be short, small graphs showing the call volume increase, where the calls are, what the district looks like, where
So
the,
we have the new website, right?
Yep.
So we could have a link in the survey that tells people to go to, tnfd.org/fire station info, and then we could present just as far as like
I think
getting
it's,
all of that info.
I think it's
for
wise to
fitting
do
it
that,
somewhere.
Nate. I really do. I think everything we do, I think, should be available to the public. The problem comes in getting people to do it.
And then show up for the meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
we have meetings, we have public hearings here where nobody shows up on the budget. Nobody. That's what we gotta counter. And I think that's the goal of this, is a combination of education and, getting the pulse of the two towns. But I agree with you, 100%. That information should be available. And you would expect any voter that's going to the district meeting would review all that information beforehand. But no,
It's not true. It doesn't happen
No,
because
it doesn't.
most families, and I've probably said this 1,000 times, they have a daily routine that they're just trying to cope with. Getting to work, getting the kids to school, and getting to the sports practice or clarinet practice, coming home, making sure they have dinner at a reasonable hour, and after all that, I want to just sit in front of it.
Hey, you going to that
Whatever,
meeting tonight?
read a book or watch TV.
I want to go back to Kevin's comment. It's like, you don't want the survey to be so long that they don't even attempt to do
Well,
it.
right.
Yeah,
But
because they're exhausted already.
but if we provide narrative and the objective, and you know, as we previously described, and that's half a page. You complete the page with 5 questions, second page with 10 questions. Honestly,
Yeah.
15 questions, we should know everything we need to know.
Right.
That sounds,
And
Something
and how do you
people do.
encourage them to actually then go to the website and look at the data and then come to the meeting?
That's another, like, some of my questions, the way I wrote it, was like, I say, you know, did you know, your district, your fire department, your, because I mean, you gotta personalize it for them,
Right.
because people need to feel it, but, yeah, and you know, and yes, what keywords can we say to make them, inspire them to, but, you know, we definitely have to have a strong introduction. Short and sweet to the point, but strong, puts the information on. I mean, one of the things we just, you know, flat out, how do you, like, to your point, talking about, do we include the past committees and stuff, and then, you know, and the numbers. We're talking about numbers. So how do and you were speaking. How do you put that out eloquently enough without sounding like, listen here, dickhead? You know, it's like,
But you don't wanna make it dumb either.
but yeah, but you can't.
Right.
But the bottom
Right,
line
you
is,
can't
offensive.
talk down to them,
If
right?
you
right.
yeah.
make someone feel stupid,
Yeah. How do you
shut
put
your
up this
ass
like
off
what?
and hurry.
Like the chief's got his questions. It was built in 1867. Frankly, the reason that we keep doing these iterations of facilities committees is because we don't have proper facilities to really store and house our equipment and operate efficiently. I mean, we're doing it by gosh or by golly, and there are those people out there that are like, well, what's wrong with it now? You should be getting it done. You know, it's
You know
just
what?
like,
That's a problem. That is a real problem when we have such shit to work with and we produce the product that is exceptional.
right.
So why do you need more?
But I like talking to guys like, you know what, because I've heard you say stuff like that. I'm like, you know what, do you still swing?
It's a valid point.
So how, what is a,
How do we crack that nut?
how do we,
Well, right.
Well, one of the main answers of this is that, it's in some of the questions I asked, we're not properly separating the crap from the people. The crap that we bring in, the crap that we're exposed of to the people
Right.
that work there. There's no way to properly separate those spaces. We don't have the air handling characteristics to do that. And what we're risking really is the people that work for us are being exposed to all this and have a higher likelihood of getting cancer or some other disease than anyone else that lives in the town of Tilton. And when you look at that, what are your expenses going to be when this starts showing up in our personnel?
So should we put questions in here like, do you have an MSDS spot in your where you work? You know, and they're like, well, yeah, I do. Okay, then.
Yeah.
So now a lot of places do. So when you start, I'm willing to bet most of the people who live and work in this community, these communities, Tilton and Northfield, have jobs where they. How do you articulate it and put it forth to them so that they can make that correlation between, hey, I put up with this crap every day too. We have to make sure you know what, you gotta have the MSDS sheets there for everything that I use for legal stuff. You know what? It's like, don't think your fire department doesn't fall under it. I mean, again, like you say, people don't relate. You don't separate, you know, the carcinogenic crap from the personnel.
right, I live in a safer environment and I work in a safer environment than we're asking these firefighters to. Right.
But I can tell you right now, anybody who works at the valve, Webster Valve, or a lot of those places over there, they have to go through lots. I mean, I don't know, do they have safety stand-down days in all those places and stuff like that?
Sure they do.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in those environments. I was in the Army for years. I mean, there's a helicopter. We had-
My wife's hair salon, she has to have
Yeah.
the MSDS sheets for everything that she's
For her
done.
chemicals.
Yes.
right. So, but I mean, so people can relate to that. We just have, I'm just saying, like, how do we link that, make them appreciate that the firefighters need it too?
The hurdle, and I believe the biggest hurdle we have to jump is that you look at any other town you want to look at. Look at Laconia, all the towns with money, Laconia, Guilford. They have way better facilities. They have more people. They have more money than we do. And we kick their ass in performance. We do. You know, and as long as that's the case, there's gonna be, I don't know who said it, there's gonna be people who vote no just because, there's vote yes just because. But I think that hurdle that I'm talking about is bigger than those combined.
So is there historically
So we're a
has
victim
a-
of our own success.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
have past proposals ever considered multiple locations, or has it always been like, oh, this has come up,
No,
we have a potential to,
The
like,
Man-
let's try and
the
do
Manville
something?
Road project was a new station and a rebuild of Park Street.
Right, well, the one that we proposed back then too, with the prep school property behind there, that was never getting, it was always to keep. Any proposal I've ever seen or been part of, other than the 2019 thing for single station only in Park Street, every other one included keeping Northfield. I mean, Park Street's an asset, to get rid of it, and, I mean, but
If you look at
cheap,
this,
yeah.
just look at the data of this going, it's a more and more important asset. But we're not really addressing this part.
So did
So I guess my point is, like, should we be linking a fire station site location to a fire station design plan and cost?
We have to. I mean, we don't really have a choice in the matter.
Well, we don't have much of a choice with respect to location, okay? So we can say the Village District, or we can say East Hilton, or we can say Northfield. But other than that,
I mean, as far as like, okay, if we're currently considering Park Street and Sanborn Road, would it make sense to, at a district meeting, have the district vote on should this location be Sanborn Road or Park Street? And once that is decided, the following year, we would come back with an actual building and say, okay, do you guys accept this building? And if they don't, for what reason or the other, then we, come up with another plan. But at least it gets.
except that first vote is really non-binding,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
it's a
we're gonna
body
leave
How
the
is
same
how is it
information.
non-binding though?
It's
right.
In the same way,
It's
like,
not on because it doesn't involve money or
But that's a lot, but here, we're going back to.
That's
like,
all
we're
gonna
here
get
for the
resolved
survey.
right here.
Yeah, we're hoping
Right?
to take care of that in the survey, that's what I'm saying, so, instead of, instead of a district, yeah, we're on the same sheet of music here.
You're hoping, and you're hoping you get a bigger response out of the survey than you're gonna get.
Right, but that's why we hope to ask, like, the questions Lisa asked, it's like, and I think other people, I know I alluded to it too, it's like, what would you be in favor of? Single location, multiple location? She refined it a little more, saying, hey, this is option A, option B that we have right now. In C, I think she had an A, B, and C under that.
ABC.
Yeah, and the thing is, my only concern is like I said with the data, like that data that you have there, Chief. It doesn't come. I remember, like I said, I've questioned this a couple of times over the past year or so. When we were talking about back in 2015, we actually had you had that that website or whatever the software that
Yeah.
actually said, "Boop, we know." I mean, it plotted all the calls, and we knew the exact call density
yes.
by address and the whole 9 yards.
that would have what that firehouse.
Firehouse, yeah.
But we
Doesn't exist
don't
anymore.
have that right now. That I'm just kind of curious, what data are you extrapolating
So
that graph
when
from?
a call comes in, it's location, the address of it
Right.
is assigned a response district.
Okay.
And that response district is narrowed down into these things here.
And how many, we have more than that response.
Yes, so like, so east, where I've labeled east, there's 2 response districts for east. One's for Tilton, one's for Northfield. There's 2 response districts for west. One's for Tilton, one's for Northfield. Village district, there's only 1 response district.
Right.
It's that 1 mile, approximately 1 mile radius. And then mutual aid is anything out of town.
And it's the highway.
The highway I just took out of it. I can put it back in, but
Is that a separate response?
it is a separate response district.
can you get that info in like a Excel sheet or
Yeah.
a CSV?
Everything. And I'm looking at ways to put it on a map right now. I actually have a YouTube video watching, trying to figure out how to do it. And every time I've done it, it comes out, it doesn't come out right.
I know software and app development to a degree, so if you could get me a copy of the CSV, I could probably get the data onto like a map. I know there are still some like free mapping APIs and tools out there as far as doing that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But
Right.
And on that, and the reason I brought that up is, like you
Are
said,
you
'cause-
around tomorrow?
yes.
Want to come into the office? Wait a second, let's see what time it is. Oh, yeah. I always gotta look at my schedule, because it's...
Did they move it? There used to be a clock.
Yeah, we keep looking at it.
Okay, it's not.
We're gonna have to
All right,
bring
I'm
one
like,
in.
I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
thought-
Did I
just
think
leave
the
my
seal
phone
was a
so they can
clock
make
and
that
the circle?
6:31.
The budget cut.
So after lunch?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
Yeah, I think the only thing I have tomorrow is planning board. So
that's it.
It is funny when
Painstaking
Christina and I
Yeah,
driving
yeah.
around, I always talk to her
Yeah, so
about
I
it. She
can- I
notices
can-
them
I can
all the
come
time, and
sometime
she,
after-
then it's all the
after
questions, well,
lunch,
how big is this
whatever
town?
works
man?
for you.
All right.
I can
Well, that looks like a
give you a
news
call
station.
earlier in the day.
Yeah,
I
well,
look at every
see, I never
fire
know
station.
really what time.
I was even
It's
taking,
supposed
I
to
got
be
a whole bunch
noontime,
of pictures of the ones over in
but we didn't
Scotland.
eat lunch till
I'm just like,
4
wow, that looks pretty good. Look
Because
at that going.
Yeah, no, it's like
No,
calls.
actually,
Yeah.
Like you guys,
They're new. It's
when
like-
you have 10
Their
minutes.
fire trucks are very
Right,
big.
that's exactly.
They are.
Hopefully
How they
you're not
respond,
like
yeah.
Smaller.
halfway through your bowl with whatever.
Okay, let's get back on film here. So, are we all in agreement what we want to do is have a short narrative at the beginning, state what our objectives are and why, and the focus being, why are you receiving this survey? And then submit the rest of all the questions that we have to UNH and let them derive the questions. Do we have consensus on that? Is there anything we want to,
Did we want to include, like the short paragraph of why, did we want to include a paragraph of facts?
yes.
Okay, that was,
So, well, I'm going
We
to
need to go Joe
photocopy
Friday
this.
on this.
I didn't type it out, so it's kind of scribbled, but, and I didn't list specific questions. I geared more towards what answer I'm looking to attain. So, in the narrative part of it, why are you receiving this? What are we trying to learn? What the objective of the survey is? In a short narrative on department statistics. Is there anything else that we should add to that? Do you guys think?
I mean, does department statistics cover department history, such as like age of the building? Because I think,
Well, I think age of the building is important.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
building could be 50 years old and still be no good for us. The fact that it's 900 years old, I don't think it makes any difference.
yeah, no, but it's the same idea of like, you know, you're complaining about your 80-year-old wife versus your 20-year-old
So,
wife.
so do you put an
like-
adjective, are inadequate, built in 1860, whatever, you know? I think that's narrative information, yeah.
So, department statistics and history? How do you feel about that?
Well, and I think that the department statistics, we're gonna include like how many full-time firefighters we have and that we're running 724 and that we do 2,200 calls and that's 6 a day.
And if we
And
give,
that each shift includes a paramedic and all our firefighters are advanced EMTs and we have this many call firefighters and, you know, the percentage of our calls that are EMS, percentage of the calls that happen in Tilton versus Northfield. One thing we haven't talked at all about is,
well,
do we know that we buy our trucks specially small to fit in the current fire station and that costs money?
so the next question is, do we write the narrative? Or do we provide all that information to UNH and let them write the narrative?
Right.
Oh, well,
And
yes.
I think I'm leaning towards letting them do it. We give them all the information, they do it, that's why
Right.
we're potentially
Fit it
hiring.
into your block on that page.
Yes, try to fit it all in. And your last point is valid. We have to buy the truck specifically designed to fit in
And
that
that, well, that goes
station.
along in line with a 150-year-old building that's antiquated. This is why it's
Do
antiquated.
we have, like an ADA deficiency?
Do you have anything?
Oh, jeez.
I wrote that down,
Yeah.
that's one of my.
Is that like a whole fourth page? Yeah, that's one of the questions, yeah.
Is it in there?
Yeah.
Want to include what you had, or you want to
Doesn't-
just?
Well,
Doesn't mean anything.
I think it's it's important, the focus of my question is very focused. To see what the total public buy-in may be.
What does that mean?
Where do you
Respect
live?
the cost.
That was my first question. What town do you live
Are
in?
you, right, but I think you have to ask specifically, do you live in Tilton, do you live in Northfield? And set it up so you can't check both.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
But I think that's important because
I think the
I think-
the survey center, they'll figure that out.
And
Yeah.
rather than give them an idea what money you're talking about, it worked pretty good in a survey we did in Northfield. Do you support new construction regardless of cost? I asked that question once, and you would be surprised the number of yeses we got.
so I like that, because similarly, I was trying to like identify like I will always vote yes on this topic. Like, there are people who it's like 20 million for a station, sure. You know, I don't want my 6 children to burn in the fire. And then there are people who are like, it cost me nothing to get a new fire station, except, you know, traffic inconvenience, no new fire station. Like, you know, there's,
And do you support one fire station, or do you, separate questions, not one or two. One question is one, the other question is two. That's
Lisa kind of toyed around with that in her
yeah,
questions.
I did too. I asked them.
Yeah.
So I think everything I had, and I recognize that it's very small and focused, but it
Can you
depends.
reread that question about how you worded that about at any cost?
Do you support new construction regardless of cost?
Actually, you know, I should have added that other question because I thought about it after I asked this because then
I mean,
I can't believe I forgot it.
the opposite question may be good as well. Like, do you oppose a new station regardless of cost?
No.
Well, you know, someone started to say that there would be people who will vote no if it was free.
Yeah.
There are people who would vote not to accept a $20 million grant to build a fire station. They just vote no.
Because the electric bill's gonna go up.
Well, because there's strings attached to the money, and there is.
So back to your question, with respect to what Tim just asked. You repeated the question,
Do you support new construction regardless of cost?
and I guess first question comes to my mind is what's the alternative? Renovation? So if we're gonna put a question like that in there, should we say, would you recommend new construction over renovation regardless of cost?
Maybe the wording is, would you support a new fire station proposal regardless of cost?
Are you gonna confuse people who are thinking
then
you're
you
just
say, well, what's
gonna
the proposal?
renovate?
I'm spending this in my head sitting here, and what
Are you
I,
going to renovate or are you going to
How
build new?
about new or renovation construction at any cost, depending upon what the committee decides is the best way to go?
Yeah, because there's the potential that
It could be
renovating Park
renovated,
Street could
Park
be
But
more
then you
expensive
water
than
down the
building.
question.
Or it could be,
yeah, see, that's,
Right.
well, maybe
My
this is a
question is-
UNH question.
one
I mean,
question a question, unless it's very clear and concise, can and will generate additional, the answer to that question can and will generate a certain amount of, guess what, other questions,
Yeah.
Or
right?
do you believe your public facility should be built to need or cost? That's been I've said it a million times since I've been on these committees. You know, if we're not gonna build the need, then why are we building it all? You know? If we just build the cost, if you only build the cost and everybody has a different view of what they're willing to spend, then that makes, now you have all those variables of what you're gonna get.
And we all keep assuming everybody's aware of what the problem is. And we're sitting here trying to give them a solution. And hope to sell the solution to the point where they agree to the price. And sometimes it's like, well, everybody knows what the problem is. Well,
Maybe not.
do they?
When you ask need, right, if you ask the chief what the need is, he has what his needs are. If you ask someone else what they think we need,
Right.
it ain't the same list.
Right. No, I understand, but that's usually where all that anecdotal data comes in. You know what, you can do a study and say, okay, we have this many pieces of equipment, we need this much square, and I know you say, there's, well, you know, we can do without that, but, yeah, but that really gets to splitting hairs when you're talking about just how much space do you need for a ladder truck. You know what, it doesn't, I mean, yeah, you can squeeze it in, but when it comes down to brass tacks, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room when you're looking at the space needs for vehicles. And then the other stuff, like you're talking about decon and all that stuff. I mean, you have, or ADA. I mean, a lot of that stuff is specifically written right out. So I mean, people can argue it all day long. But that's where it's incumbent upon, you know, the chief, the commissioners, this committee to actually do due diligence with determining what are the actual needs, factual needs based upon, you know, the NFPA or best practices and things of that nature. You know, other than just like, well, you know, I can fit my four-wheeler in a freaking whatever, but I prefer to have a 28 by 32 garage. You know.
Right. So how do we go back to those folks that Kevin
28
referred
by
to as
38.
getting the job done?
That's what it is. 28 by
And
38.
I wish I knew how to get over that hurdle, because I think if you get over that hurdle, the other ones will just be speed bumps.
Right.
That is such a big deal, that we're doing such a good job with such, and we don't lack, I don't believe for a second, we lack in quality of equipment
No.
or people.
No, we have great equipment. We just have a
You go around and see
list.
who's